What is up, y'all? Mental Muscle Coach here, and this video is going to be all about what the neurocircuitry of makeup sex can teach you about your life. Tony Robbins is famous for the following statement that the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our emotional states from moment to moment and day to day. So respectively, if we see this connection between quality of life and emotion, that gives us a clue that if we are to dissect our emotional states and dissect how our emotions express themselves within the scenarios in our lives, we can gain a lot of information that we can use to move forward in a more optimal way. It goes without saying that relationship is one of the key areas that serves as a bed of triggers for our emotions. When we're engaging with someone where we are required to express vulnerability and intimacy and all of these kinds of areas where we're required to put our guard down and enter in with a new level of authenticity and truth, it can bring up certain things within us. It can call out of us those elements that we may enjoy, but respectively, a lot of those elements that we may find to be a representation of our past pains, areas where we still need to grow, areas where we might be more reactive or responsive in a way as opposed to being more laid back and being observant towards life. And so one very common concept or occurrence that is often referenced within our generation specifically is this concept of makeup sex. Now, let's give a quick operational definition in order to just, understand where we're going with this, right? So when we think of makeup sex, what comes to our minds? Obviously, let's say if you're with your partner and you've just engaged in a very tense conversation, maybe you had to approach a topic where there's a level of sensitivity or a level of discomfort towards one another. And perhaps through the context or through the progress through that conversation, it ended up developing some emotional heaviness, maybe some intensity, maybe some discontinuity between you and your partner. And so as a result, you find yourself in a piff or just some kind of scenario or euphemism that you could use for basically being pissed at each other and having to argue. And now for many of us, you may be listening to this and saying, I don't identify with this concept of makeup sex because when I'm in an argument with my partner, if I'm in this space of discontinuity, of discomfort, where I essentially don't feel safe, or rather I haven't regained that same feeling of safety within the relationship yet due to the tensity within the argument or piff, it turns me off. I don't find a desire to be sexual with them. I don't find a desire to reconvene and reestablish that intimate connection in a physical way so quickly. And that would definitely be understandable, of course. However, for many individuals, they find that this is a consistent element. It might even be a consistent dynamic within the relationship you're in or in a past relationship you've encountered, where you find that after those types of scenarios at times, you may engage in makeup sex. After the time where you kind of, get some of that stress out, you get some time away, you get some space where you can come down from that emotional precipice, if you will, and you start talking again, and maybe one of you cracks a joke. Maybe something is said that kind of smooths things over a little bit, where you just start to feel, okay, this inner awareness, this inner sensation that we have gotten over that hump of conflict that we were previously engaged in. And so now as a result, in this new space of reestablished comfort, there is actually a sexual stimulation that arises. There is actually this internal subconscious urge to reconnect in a physical way, to reestablish that sense of closeness that you most likely value so thoroughly with your intimate partner. But regardless of whether or not you identify with the action or the dynamic or the activity of makeup sex, there is still something that all of us can holistically take away from this if we look at the neuroscience of what is happening. Because for those who have engaged in that experience, here's my question for you. Did you notice that there was almost this sense of deep relief or this deeper sense of satisfaction almost during the encounter? Perhaps you may have observed that there was this increased level of physiological sensitivity, almost like, wow, this feels extra good. This feels extra satisfying to me. And so it's almost as if the piff or the argument or the discomfort, the discontinuity that you encountered served as a mechanism to strengthen the sexual encounter on the other side. Why is that happening? What is that telling us? And also, how can we apply it holistically? Well, if you have noticed that increased sensitivity during makeup sex, if you can think about that enhanced level of satisfaction, that enhanced feeling of relief and depth of intimacy or connection that is often experienced, there is a neurological reason behind why that's happening. There is something that we refer to as the pain-pleasure balance. It is ultimately referring to a key element of our central nervous system, which is it has two primary goals. Number one is to keep us alive, but then number two is to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. Here's the thing. When it comes to doing that, when it comes to that dyadic scenario as it relates to pleasure and pain, our body has to maintain a state of homeostasis. We can't just have maximum pleasure all the time. That's not something that we can sustain. The neurochemicals that are conducive to that, they can't just release ad infinitum forever as if you're just in this eternal high. And so as a result, there is this pain-pleasure balance that our central nervous system aligns with that basically says when we experience periods of intense pleasure, euphoria, or respectively periods of negative emotion, periods of a depth of pain or sadness or exhaustion, particularly as it relates to our connections in this way, the pain-pleasure balance can cause us to sway in the other direction. That's why it's so interesting that so many times people who are famous, star athletes, things like that will express, let's say, if they win the Olympics or, they win the NBA finals or they get a gold medal or they win an award, oftentimes they will express that literally the next day they will experience almost a level of sadness, perhaps a level of situational depression even, because of the fact that the neurochemicals that are consistent with the pleasure, that powerful intensity of joy or satisfaction that they may have experienced in that moment of triumph or that moment of greatness, the pain-pleasure balance sways them back. And so they may end up feeling that negativity. Now, how does that relate to makeup sex? Oftentimes in the process of encountering an argument or a state of emotional discontinuity with your partner, there is an inner feeling of loss that occurs when that anger is going through, when that argument is taking place. There's often this feeling of loss where our connection has been temporarily broken. Our intimacy has been shut off. There is now a barrier in between the dynamic of our connection, of our intimacy, of our closeness that we have valued so much in this relationship. And in that space of loss, there is an inner barrenness that can be experienced and expressed through the emotion. That is part of the reason why there can be such an exhaustion, almost a sadness that can arise after an argument, even if there was initially anger. There can be this barrenness that lays in wake afterwards saying, man, this doesn't feel good. I mean, obviously, but on a deeper level, there is this loss and I'm craving that to be filled. I'm craving to have it back again. And so on a subconscious level, what ends up happening is the body can often express that yearning through this sensitivity, through these different physiological factors that can almost or literally serve as a reward to engage in the pleasure once again. It's saying, okay, we've just experienced pain. So now on a neurological level, it is creating motivators to move towards the pleasure once more. And so in the makeup sex, the sensitivity, the enhanced satisfaction that occurs is actually being empowered. It is actually being imbued by the energy of this pain-pleasure balance, saying, I want to return to homeostasis. I want to return to where we were before. I want to return to our comfort and familiarity in the closeness and connection of our relationship that we had prior. And so it manifests oftentimes in a far greater intensity of the makeup sex relative to normal intimacy. And so on the short term, there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally natural. Again, some of us may not identify with this behavior, others may. However, what can we take away from this? Because of the fact that all of us experience the pain-pleasure balance within our physiology and our neurocircuitry. When we stop and understand that our experiences not only mold how we feel, but they also mold how our brain will motivate us for future behaviors. And so when we are aware of the fact that we're going through a very painful time in our life, if we encounter that there are consistent stressors that feel like they are impeding upon our quality of emotional stability, our quality of emotional wellness. This can create a liability for us because maybe for some of us, I mean, definitely makeup sex, if, the connection with the partner is subpar, if, the issues that were being addressed are still lingering, definitely makeup sex can serve as something that is toxic if it is not, handled and navigated in a healthy and stable way. But the thing to understand here is that as it relates to this pain-pleasure balance holistically in our life, we have to be aware that when we are under stress, we need to be even more intentional about how we move forward, and we need to be more aware about the things we're being drawn toward. Because having pain for a certain period of time can actually activate the desire to seek pleasure. It can activate that craving to be more hedonistic. And so yes, on one level, this sounds obvious, but this is really powerful because there's a plethora of research that shows that one of the number one predictors of future success and wellness in life is a single competency, and that is the ability to defer gratification, the ability to sacrifice or put away pleasure now in order to benefit later. That is one of the key elements of holistic success in life. And so applying that to this, it's saying to us that, hey, if I identify that I'm under a lot of stress, if I identify that I'm engaging in a speed or rate of movement in my life that is causing me to feel worn out or exhausted or unhappy for consistent periods of time, I need to be mindful of the behaviors that I'm being drawn towards. Maybe you find yourself engaging in instant gratification-based activities a lot more often. Maybe you find yourself drinking more. Maybe you find yourself going out more, which isn't a problem, but you may be using it as a way to access escapism. These can be vehicles to lessening the quality of our life over time because we are giving into instant gratification, and it is taking us away from our goals. It's taking us away from our awareness and our state of consciousness. Because if you're so focused on being gratified, if you're so focused on getting that pleasure, then you're not being present within yourself. You're not being focused on your future goals, your future desires. And that is a powerful thing that can take away from our lives. So the neurocircuitry of makeup sex is teaching us that we must be mindful and we must take responsibility over the quality of our emotional state. We can't just say, oh, the external things that are occurring are falling upon me, and this is the reason why I'm struggling to feel emotionally well from day to day. It's very true that that could be the case, and for many of us it is. However, we must take responsibility over our emotional state. We have to see that as something that is crucial for showing up in the best way that we want to, because our neurocircuitry, our physiology will motivate us to seek pleasure when we're engaging in tough situations. It will cause us to lean into the things that may not be ideal for our goals and objectives in life if we are allowing that to rewire our mind, to cause us to seek that pleasure, especially because the motivation towards that instant gratification is empowered. So we need to treat our consistent emotional state like it is a responsibility, and we must be accountable for how we feel from day to day. It is not just something that we have the gift of enjoying if we feel good. We have to be accountable over our state and really take it as a serious thing that we have to optimize how we feel, because that helps us to move forward in life. And that is how the neurocircuitry of makeup sex can influence our life. I love y'all. Neurocircuitry out. Peace.